Episode 2. Here we go. Today I got to sit down with a good friend, Josh Bridges, and I think the only description of this guy is that he's a total badass. Most people would recognize his name from the CrossFit world. I'd say for the last 5 years, highly recognizable and very dominant name in that environment. And a lot of people don't realize that while he was competing, or is competing in the CrossFit Games for probably 3 of those 5 years, he was also active duty in the military, squeezing his training in when he could outside of the responsibilities of his job, which is actually how I met him. I was a second phase BUDS instructor and was doing a workout with the students and looked over, and yeah, there he was, basically crushing me. And in 10 years, nothing's changed as far as that goes. He's a beast. If you're not familiar with CrossFit or the CrossFit competitive season, definitely check it out and check him out. It's pretty impressive. So we talked about that a little bit, but more about his previous career, coaching his kids' sporting teams, which is an endeavor that I would not like to personally take on. What he did before the military, why he joined the military, and a little bit about the current events and the attacks over in Manchester. So here we go, episode number 2 with Josh.
Okay, got the red smoke. Gun runs north to south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke. Okay, copy, west of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now. Come on with it, baby, give it to me, I need it. You're cleared hot. Copy, cleared hot.
I have to start off with the first question, man. What's going on with your mustache?
What's wrong with it?
Wow. Check my watch here to see how much time we have. I guess the question would be what are you shooting for with that particular facial hair? Is it pirate? Is it Don Poncho?
It's nothing. It's I have no particular thing I'm going for. I'm just letting it be. It was kind of like at first when I got out, it was like, I'm just going to grow my facial hair out just to, stick it to the man.
I think every single human being who leaves military service goes that route.
Yeah,
yep.
Right. So, and then Rogue made a T-shirt, and it's done really well. So now I can't shave it off.
I mean, it's unique. Probably the most iconic picture from last year's games is you in the vest, right?
Yeah.
After Murph, your classic, you seem to get a little bit excited when you when you win.
I wear my emotions on my sleeve.
You do. And but that picture, and it's like the same facial hair, and it's like I had the same thing. I got out. I wanted to grow like long hair. I grew long hair, but my facial hair looks like I'm Amish.
Okay.
Yeah, so it never worked for me overseas, even though I would do it. But if I wanted to invade somewhere where they make wood furniture and butter, I could totally slide in. Call me if that's what you want. Other than that, I'm better off just shaving. I can't even do it's all low, like an Abe Lincoln beard.
Right.
It's unset. I want to trim it and tape it up a little bit higher on my cheeks to make it.
Just go with the fake beard.
Oh God, I hate it. So instead, I just went with ridiculously long hair, past the shoulder blades at some points. Even while I was in, and then it's okay, I need to cut this at some point.
Yeah, I got really frustrated with the hair. It was disgusting.
I had to cut my hair one time overseas because I was on the skids of a little bird, and the hair was so long that it was whipping in front of my face, and I couldn't see what was going on. And I remember having this discussion with myself. I'm just I like the style, but this is getting in the way of work.
Right.
So I'm going to trim this back a little bit. And then I went the other route and just completely buzzed it. And then none of my stuff fit. My helmet was loose, rattling around. My headset didn't fit on my head.
Yeah. Yeah, last year, that was actually why I went with, I cut it into that horrible haircut into the games because of swimming. It was I'd get in the pool and I'd start swimming and I didn't wear a swim cap in the pool, obviously, because
who does?
I'm a man. And so it was just it was getting in my goggles and it was driving me crazy. So I went and got a haircut, and it was the worst haircut I've ever gotten in my life.
I actually remember you were self-conscious about it.
I should have shaved my head.
I remember you saying, I briefly ran into you. I try to stay out of everybody's hair, metaphorically.
Whoa, there it is.
Yeah, didn't mean to,
Nailed it.
Pun intended, I suppose. But yeah, I remember you actually saying something about, you actually came up, you're like, hey, what do you think of my haircut? And I was like, whoa, Josh is a little self-conscious about his hair.
I don't ever wear headbands, and that's why I wore headbands.
Well, again, because you're a man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thanks for noticing.
Yeah. Wow. there's so much stuff I want to talk to you about, just given your background. So I'm going to dive right into it.
Let's do it.
Headlines yesterday. Surprisingly repetitive of what they were 2 weeks ago, which is surprisingly repetitive of what they were 2 months ago. I was just reading, it said the Secretary of Defense has called his counterpart in Europe 4 times since the beginning of the year for situations like this. And I want to grab people by their ears and just scream at them that, like, it's avoidable. But I also realize that when I do that, it turns people off. Like, people are super trenched in.
Right.
Like, I encounter 2 camps. One of them is, we somehow deserve this because look at all the terrible things that we've done, or we need to eradicate a certain percentage of the population. And I don't think either are necessarily correct.
Right.
I know how I feel when I read news reports like that, or I see some stuff come across the mainstream media. What's your initial thought when you see those tickers start coming across the screen?
Obviously, for me, it's always anger.
Yeah.
Anger.
Slightly
is,
familiar with that.
right.
Yep.
Right. You just get frustrated. Especially with coming from where we come from. We've seen a little bit of the other side of it, and so it's just so frustrating. I don't.
You think it'll happen in the U.S.? Actually, that's actually a poorly phrased question, because I think it has already happened in the U.S. to a degree, like
Right.
San Bernardino.
Right.
You think it'll happen again?
I hope not. I really do. I hope not, but I mean, you never know. That's the thing is, this group of people, they're very dedicated to what they do, and so.
That's one thing I get all the time. People think that they're crazy.
Right.
And they are, I guess, based off their belief structure and what I consider to be sane and to be crazy, they are crazy. But I always correct people that it's not a matter of a depth of belief, because these people are more committed than I would say most Americans are committed to the things that they believe.
And commit to anything.
I mean, just briefly looking at the headlines. So 3 guys get out of a van. They, of course, use the van as a weapon.
Right.
Which proves that you can weaponize anything regardless of the restrictions you put on it.
We should ban vans.
Yeah, well, yeah. And how far do you want to go? You
Right.
ban pencils and pens, because you
Right.
could jab that in somebody's eye too. But then they hop out. They're wearing fake suicide vests. So all the canisters. There was a picture of a guy laying in the street, and you and I might recognize it because it looks a little bit janky. It looked like you taped up smoke canisters.
Right.
And I was like, all right, that's not necessarily anything that I've ever seen before. But they jump out rigged up to scare people. Maybe it probably was styrofoam, who knows what it is, with MIG knives, and then they just go on a slashing spree.
They use knives.
They used knives after they got out of the vehicle, and they went around and basically stabbed at everybody indiscriminately, which goes to my point that, again, I try to reinforce people. It doesn't matter what your personal beliefs are. If you ever encounter evil like that, you don't have time to say, hey, no, it's not me.
No, yeah.
I don't, I believe that, you're right. You're correct to feel the way that you do. Like, you're done. You're dead.
Yeah.
And most people ran away. Some people tried to stop them. I was stoked to hear that, some patrons in a bar started throwing bar stools and bottles at them. Like, they decided to get it on, which
Yeah.
is the
Hey.
course of action that I respect the most. If you can run and get away safely, if you got your family, go for it.
And in their country, that's what they have to use to protect themselves. They don't have, guns.
They don't have guns.
They don't have anything.
Man, that's a topic for another day.
Yes, it
I
is.
think a lot of people in the U.S. should not have guns either.
Agreed.
I agree with the Second Amendment, but I think it needs an asterisk. But we would need to log 4 hours for that conversation.
At least 4 hours.
Yeah, at least 4 hours. I watch the news. I don't know if it's the same for you. I watch the news and I watch the media personalities talking about this stuff, and I have to turn it off.
Oh, yeah.
Because of their lack of understanding. I think it's coming in the U.S. I think San Bernardino. I mean, why would it not come in the U.S., right? Everybody looks at Europe and they say, oh, it's the open border issue, and that they don't pay attention to what's going on, and they allow these communities of people to exist, and they shun the values of the country that they're living in. I'm like, are you talking about San Diego, or are you talking about Europe? You talking about Michigan? It's that we have the same problem here in the United States.
Right. I think one thing that we have going for us, though, is we do have the Second Amendment, and we do have guns, so we're not completely a soft target.
I mean, I can speak for myself. Not that I would be one to break the law. Like I actually avoid violence at all costs. It's like I'm so not interested in looking for a fight or looking for violence, but I also want to avoid it if that's the only course of action necessary.
Right.
But yeah, if you know that the populace that you're trying to intimidate has a gun,
Yeah.
and you bring a knife to a gunfight, the classic metaphor, like,
right, right.
I'm going to bring this here machete to a pistol fight.
Yeah.
It's going to change stuff.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the way I kind of look at it is there is, in the states where there's like the death penalty, the laws that you can get convicted and get put to death for are not committed as much in those states as they are in states with don't have the death penalty. So where I'm kind of going with that was like, I don't think that we're not obviously we probably have there's a chance that it could happen again, but again,
there's definitely radicalized people that are against the values and virtues and morals of our country living in this country. Like you can't deny that for sure.
No, they're definitely here. There's no doubt about it. But I hope that like you said, they're not dumb. They're not dumb people, and they're not gonna come after us with knives when we have guns. So
I'm glad you said that, because that's another good point too. Like I hear it all the time. Oh, these they're savages, or they think people want to demean them or put them at a lower educational level or a lower cognitive level.
Right.
And that's not my experience in dealing with some of these people, especially overseas, where they're kind of like in their own territory. Even then, they're not dumb.
No.
They don't do the smartest stuff sometimes because they may not understand the levels of the technology and the equipment that we have that can trump their behavior.
Right.
But they're not dumb. Like,
No.
I think I have misjudged my enemy before and took that perception. I'm like, oh, this is, I'm better than this person in every respect. And it almost bit me in the ass. It has almost bit me in the ass. I think underestimating your opponent is a complete recipe for failure and destruction later on.
Right.
So that every time people talk about it and I hear people make those comments, I try to correct them. It's like, they're not dumb.
No.
And they're very committed, just as committed. And it's not a depth of belief issue. They believe what they believe as deeply as you believe what you believe.
Right.
And
probably more so, and they're willing to go to extremes.
And they're in the agoge, ready to get after it.
Right.
And the problem I think most people have is they don't realize they're in the agoge as well too.
Right.
Because they're like, no, I'm good. I'm a pacifist. I'm like, all right, that's a good academic concept that's going to fail in practical application.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
I completely agree. When I was over there too, that's what you see. Like when you had to go over and train some of these, locals basically to like help build their own protection. Like you see that we were dealing with farmers, and these guys knew how to move, and
they have a basic understanding of fire and maneuver.
Right.
Which I mean, for people who don't know, I guess we have to describe what that is. It's like the basic armed infantry tactic. I guess it wouldn't really work with. Maybe it would work with swords, but if you can project your firepower at all, and you have two elements, one of the elements provides a covering fire of some kind, while another element can maneuver, and then they swap their roles. And if you're on the inside of that, receiving the fire, the angles are changing on you, and at some point you get to a position where you not only can you not move, but you have fire coming in from both directions, and you're in a complex ambush, and your odds of survival are super low.
Almost none, yes.
And we teach it in the military, like your basic Army, Marine Corps, maybe even the Air Force guys. I don't necessarily know what kind of ground combat skills those guys have, but that's like number one.
Right.
Hey, I'm going to shoot, and while you hear me shooting, you move. Like the basic SEAL tactic, right? You start with a shooting pair.
Yep.
The individual movement stuff, and you shoot. You hear me shooting, okay, you move. And I've actually that last deployment in 2010 stood back a minute, and I was watching some guys down in a valley shooting back at us doing that, and it was like just that realization of like, okay, like wow, you guys are. They were in actually three elements.
Yeah.
And they were like spearheading the middle one forward, and then the other two sides would maneuver. Now, granted, they were shooting at another element, so I mean, we were kind of out of the firefight a little bit. But just sitting back and watching them, be like, okay, these people actually, they understand what's going on,
right?
And there's a certain amount of respect that they're due for their desire. I mean, to me, when I look at it, I have a certain level of respect for them to be willing to strap it on and get into the sandbox and play a little bit.
And the thing that we're forgetting to mention is that they're doing it in dresses and sandals.
Yeah. I mean, I'm probably wearing $10,000 worth of equipment,
right.
and they're wearing a bed sheet.
And
sandals.
And sandals. It was so impressive. I'm not gonna lie. I was a little blown away when I was watching the way that these guys maneuvered in mud on pretty steep terrain sometimes, and being able to just like scamper up the sides of these hills with sandals on. I was like, wow.
One of the most embarrassing moments of my operational career was being outrun by a man who I would assume at the time was 20 years older than me in a set of sandals.
He's probably 3 years younger than you.
He might have been.
Right.
But he had probably a 15-foot head start. And I was body weight plus probably close to 80 to 100 pounds.
Yeah.
And I pursued for, I'm going to call it 30 seconds. It might have been 20. It's hard to say. But I couldn't catch him. This dude had the best E&E plan in his head. He was over a wall, down a ravine, and he was cutting left and right and running on top of the dikes and all the irrigation systems that they have. And I'm doubled over, just just come back here. It's again.
Come back here.
Yeah, come back here right now. I just want to talk. It was so. To this day, it drives me nuts that guy got. I couldn't catch him.
Yeah.
And it's I mean, it's you have all the technological advantage in the world, and you go to a place that I would say arguably is 5 centuries behind when it comes to technology, and you watch them using those tactics, and I mean, I have a certain amount of respect for their ability to do that. It's I mean, they're not necessarily professional soldiers, but they were out there fighting.
Yeah, I mean they've been at war for thousands of years.
Yeah.
You know, I mean every generation of their has been in war, so it makes sense a little bit.
You in 2010, because we ended up serving together at Team 3, but you were over in Iraq, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And then before, were you at Team 3? Did you go to? How long were you?
I was at Team 3 from 2008 to 2012.
Yeah, walk me backwards.
Or 13.
When did you go through Buds?
So Buds was in 2007.
You were
And so
class like in the
I was
260s?
266.
Okay.
Some might say 26 shit, but
What makes you say that? I mean, like
no, that was just something we used to say in the class together. No, we at the end of our Buds career, we kind of had a little bit of a couple mishaps and got our butt spanked a little bit.
Okay,
so,
BB spank. You can use big boy words.
Yeah, that's right. This is an adult conversation.
I think
right?
this is the.
I doubt any children should be listening to this conversation.
Yeah, I doubt this. This is the internet. I think. I don't think this counts under FCC guidance just yet. It's.
Yeah, we had the third phase party and
out on the island.
Yeah. And a couple guys. One guy had got a little drunk, I guess you could say, and punched a dude.
Student.
As another student, and then they tried to like hide it with like saying like, "Hey, I fell on an ammo can."
I mean, I could already tell you that I
And
think
you're like,
of a better excuse
right,
than
so
that.
I'm like, I'm looking at these guys who are having this conversation. I'm like, are you guys idiots? Like, you're not talking to like a middle school principal or something, And
it's okay, like as you know from your time in the teams, like it's all right if you want to fight a guy that you work with, as long as you can still work with him at the end of the day. You guys it's no problem with like, hey, I don't like you. We should go outside and beat the crap out of each other, and then we'll go finish the rest of the workday.
Exactly.
And it's gonna be okay.
It was really weird, and then because of all the people trying to like hide it and stuff, and it just got
it got worse.
Right.
You came into the Navy post college though, right?
Yeah. Well, I only went to college for a year. I wrestled in college for a year.
I thought you were. How old are you now? 30.
I'm 33.
30. Okay. For some reason, I thought you went to college and then because where are you from originally?
I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, St. Charles,
Yep.
St. Chuck. I went to high school, college, both in St. Charles. Lindenwood University, a small NAI school. They're D2 now, I think. Actually, they're just basically a sports program school. So went there, wrestled for a year, got out, did some horrible jobs for 3 years.
Like what? You can't just say that and not give me some descriptions. What are we talking about?
So right out of college, I started working at the time it was SBC, which is now AT&T. So the phone company, I was a telemarketer. That's right. I would call you up and see if you wanted to buy.
You're with that guy?
Call waiting. Did you want call waiting, or could I offer you that call forwarding for your home phone?
I don't know if I would tell people that used to be my job.
Yeah,
I hate those people.
It was awful.
They have my cell phone number now.
It was awful. I know. I get those. I get like 3 telemarketing calls a day on my cell phone.
You block them, right? Like
Of course. And then right when I get off the phone, I block the number.
If I say hello and then there's like a 6-second delay, I immediately hang up and block the number.
Yep.
Yeah.
I do the exact same.
All right, so you started off strong.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Unbelievable.
Hey, man, someone's got to pay the bills.
Okay, I'm not going to argue that.
Yeah, right. I'm sure you had some jobs.
Unless
Did you grow up with a silver spoon in your mouth?
Yes, it was a silver spoon that looked a lot like a brick in my hand because my dad was a masonry contractor.
Nice.
And my summer job was, I was a hod carrier. I carried bricks and I mixed concrete. And I remember that I was
That's
like,
some man work right there.
I was like 13 years old, first day, because like everybody else was looking forward to summer. Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go wherever. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go to work, which at the time I didn't appreciate. Except for at the end of the summer, I had a bunch of cash. Right.
Yeah.
My dad paid me, cash under the table. I think it was $1.75 an hour.
Solid.
I give him shit to this day. I'm like, you only paid me $1.75, and he just comes right back at me. He's like, yeah, but you're only worth $1.25. So. Yeah, my dad's kind of a pretty witty shit talker.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't appreciate it at the time, but I look back and I'm super grateful I had those jobs.
Oh yeah. They make you appreciate, the things you have now.
I remember when I was 13, the first day of summer, my dad's like, all right, this summer you're going to learn how to use the jackhammer. And we did a lot of chimney repair because the earthquake hit back in, I think it was 89.
You're from Santa Cruz, right?
I'm from Santa Cruz, yeah. I was born in Santa Cruz and largely raised there except for a couple years that we traveled around. But my dad's father had owned one of the first masonry companies, and his father before him, actually, the first masonry companies in Santa Cruz. Like, they built half the high schools. And there was a huge earthquake in 89, so there was a magnetizing force to get all those skilled laborers to come back. So we moved back in 90, and yeah, shortly thereafter, I started learning the family trade, which actually has paid off. I mean, I can tile floors and do all sorts of stuff.
Oh, man.
I run from plumbing and electricity because they terrify me.
Right.
But you get me around bricks, I can do it. But every year it'd be like, all right, this year you're going to learn how to make concrete. And I would do that. Or my first year was like, you're moving things. Like, move that bucket of stuff over to there.
Right.
Move those bricks onto the roof.
Yeah.
And then one summer he's like, all right, it's the jackhammer. He's like, 1, don't tell your mother.
Yes. Exactly.
And
I would say 13, man, that's early.
And I was 150 pounds when I graduated high school. So I was
150?
Yeah, when I was 18, I was 150 pounds.
How tall are you?
6 foot.
My goodness.
I was 160 pounds when I graduated Buds. I gained weight in Buds.
Wow.
Yeah, I was a spindly little kid.
Yeah.
I had my driver's license from when I was 16 for a long time. I looked like it was just an emaciated, Ethiopian kid.
Right.
Just shaved head because I had buzzed haircut for like 6 years. But he's like, all right, don't tell your mom. You're going to learn how to use it today. And we were it was always fireplaces and chimneys because of all the movement from the earthquake. He's like, all right, go stand up on top of that chimney. I was like on top of it? He's like, yeah, I'm going to hand you the jackhammer and basically just start shearing it off the side of the house. He's like, again, rule number 3, don't tell your mom.
Nailed it.
Yeah, so that was really the only job I had. I did that job consistently from when I was old enough to work, and then the Navy. I mean, the Teams was really my first adult job that had a steady paycheck where I opened up a bank account.
When did you go in?
August 1st of 1996.
How old?
I was 17 and a half when I signed the paperwork, when my parents signed the waiver for me, and then I was, 8 months or 18? Yeah, I was 18.
Did you go straight to Buds?
Yeah. Did you go through the new pipeline where?
Yeah.
So you'll have to explain that because I actually don't understand it. But when I went in, and then I want to hear what you did after being a telemarketer because that started off awesome.
Oh, man, yes.
But when I went in, so there was no contracts. There was no guarantees unless you wanted to be a corpsman. And as soon as I heard you had to go to Bragg for a year and basically detach yourself, I'm like, no, I'm not. I have no interest in doing that whatsoever. So I picked the A school that had the shortest available time to get me to Buds, which was OSA school, the radar scope operator.
Okay.
Still have never actually seen one to this day, but took the OSC chief test 3 times and passed it.
Really?
Based off the basic military knowledge. That's all I studied.
Wow.
Yeah, and then it's just like C.
Yep.
Statistically, you'll get a few right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I went to Buds, did that video in the 4th week, where they're like, hey, who wants to do the physical screening test, which is a total joke.
Oh man, that's
it was like 10 pull-ups, 50 push-ups, 50 sit-ups, a 500-meter swim, and I think it was a 1.5 mile run.
Yeah, 1.5 mile run, and the times are not fast.
They're not fast, and nor is if you were to go to Buds if you struggled at that test and you were to go to Buds, your life is over.
No.
And that was it.
Good.
And then they changed the designator in the system somehow, and then I went to OSA school and then got classed up and showed up in January of '97.
Wow, so you're 18?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I was.
You were the
baby of the class.
Yeah,
for sure.
I can't remember the term we called them. You had to always go clean the bell, right?
I avoided the bell. I think I had to clean it a few times. I didn't want to get anywhere near that thing.
No, right?
Yeah, because
No.
you know the deal. At first, you're like kind of scared of the thing, and then it becomes a symphony when people
Right.
start ringing
you
you.
just wait for it. You just love it.
They used to yell at our class, like, "Okay, listen, we were in third phase. That classroom right off the grinder." And they're like,
Right.
"You can't cheer that loud when somebody quits because it's like the worst day of their life."
But it makes you feel so good.
It's funny how it shifts, right?
Right.
From it becomes something that you're dreading, or not dreading, but just avoiding, and you don't want to think about. To every time that I would hear, and speaking for myself, every time you'd hear somebody ring it, inside you're like, "Yeah, that's right.
You're damn right.
Yeah, I'm still here."
Yeah. It is an interesting thing for sure. I mean,
It's an odd life.
Thriving off of someone else's failure, but it is what it is.
I was actually really glad I went back as an instructor. You want to talk about an eye-opening experience to not only all the stuff that happens behind the scenes, because as a student, it's chaotic.
Right.
You're like, why is the guy who was like kind of nice yesterday, why is he a psychopath today?
Right.
I just did this exact behavior yesterday, and today I'm getting crushed for it. What's going on? And
Yeah.
it was it was interesting to go back, and I actually spent a lot of time with the students who quit because I was curious as to why they would break. Because I mean, you know the deal. Everybody in your class day one, right? First evolution most of the time, first phase, like, all right, who here's going to be here on the last day? Every hand goes up.
Oh, of course.
And then the last day, 15% of the people are still there. You're like,
30 minutes later, those people who had their hands raised are already ringing the bell.
that one always got me too. Why would you quit 1 hour into the first day?
Oh man, and like the first 3 days is obviously the biggest.
You
drop
can't
off.
stop it.
Yeah,
Like,
it's just the bell's just ringing all day long.
It's like, what did you think that you were getting into in the day and age of the internet, where you can look up
Right.
there's
There's a documentary that shows you 2-3 whatever it is 2-3-4 or 2-3-6.
Yeah.
And you can.
well, it
actually,
shows you what the instructors wanted you to see.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Being able to speak from having worn the instructor hat, there
Yeah.
was what happened when the cameras were on, I was sure, and then it's like, hey, we're wrapped for the day, right?
Yeah.
All right, you sons of bitches, meet me out by the surf zone.
Let's party.
Yeah. We need to make up for some missed training.
Yeah, those cameras made me look really nice, but
But I mean, so people hit me up, and I'm sure they hit you up all the time for advice on training.
oh yeah.
And I honestly now I'm like, go on the internet and research. You can find the physical criteria for all the benchmarks that you need to meet for each of the phases.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's nothing I can tell you that you can't find on the internet.
Right.
Which is the exact opposite of when, like, in the early 90s. I mean, I knew I wanted to be a team guy since I was 11. So in like the late 80s, actually.
I always find it impressive. Sorry to interrupt, but I always find it impressive the guys that had that mentality, that grew up like knowing what Navy SEALs were and like wanting to be them, that made it. Because typically, what I found to be the case was guys that had that mentality put it up too high, like put it on a pedestal too high to where they couldn't obtain it, and then they ended up quitting early. But I only,
That's interesting. I've never heard anybody describe it like that. But I also think, again, I didn't have access to a huge volume of information. I had an
Right.
idea of what I thought it would be to become a SEAL, and it was everything I thought I would be. But it was a lot of stuff that I had no idea.
no, I was the same. I didn't.
And when I had the only advantage, I wouldn't call it an advantage, but I had different insight too, because I came in pre 9/11.
Right.
My first two
Right.
deployments were peacetime, where we would talk about the Big Mish and the golden and the golden Connex box, which people probably don't understand, but it was like this
Right.
mystical container that if anything real ever happened, they would open it up, and every piece of gear that you would ever want or every weapon would be bequeathed to you, and you could go, which didn't exist.
Yeah.
Uh,
well, not for the regular side.
Not for the yes, there was golden Connex boxes
Yeah.
in other places that I was
Right.
very fortunate to explore throughout my career. But I mean, so it was everything that I thought the career would be, and then it was a lot of stuff that I never expected. I never thought I was going to get married. I never thought I was going to have kids, and then towards the tail end of my career, I had all three of those things. My math is terrible. I had both of those things. Yeah. Yeah. I have great math. We'll edit that part out.
No, keep that in there.
We will. But I mean, what did you find it to be? Because you came in post.
Yeah, I came in 2007. So
hold on.
yeah, we want. Oh yeah,
because we skipped telemarketer
let's backtrack.
Yeah, let's backtrack. So you're
So-
the asshole
Yeah.
that is going through numbers like bothering me at dinner time, asking if I
man.
want call waiting,
And let me
which
tell
is
you,
rhetorical.
let
Of
me-
course, I want call waiting.
Of course you do, and call forwarding, all of it, bundle it up. The thing about that job is those people who are doing that job. I feel like I know what they're going through as well. So they have headphones on, just like we do right now, and they have a microphone right in front of them, and then they have a computer screen. All right, and so you don't like sit there and actually like dial a number.
You just
and
hit
then-
probably the enter button, right?
No, so basically, once you hit I'm like alive now kind of thing, like we just did. I'm live, and then you get a beep in your ear, and that means someone's on the line, and then
That's why there's that delay.
yeah, and so then there's a script in front of you that basically you're supposed to read from. And
Stop it.
No, dead serious. And then obviously you have rebuttals if they obviously start to refuse. And
So
you
it's totally canned.
and you have to rebuttal at least twice, and then at that point, like obviously you can say, okay, like we'll have a good day.
I would fail at that job
The mo-
based off of the criteria you've already given
The
me.
the moment that they hang up the phone, the next beep comes into your ear. It is nonstop. I'm not even kidding. And then you have to like go, and you only got 2 15-minute breaks and an hour lunch.
That was going to be my question. How long does this go on?
So you do it all for 8 hours straight. You sit there with your headphones.
8 hours with 2 15-minute. So you get 90 minutes off out of 8 hours.
Yes.
How long did you last at this job?
It was a year and a half, and it was awful.
You're actually tougher than I thought you were.
Right,
I thought you were
right.
very tough before, but my lord.
You thought Buzz was hard? You thought Buzz was hard? Are you kidding me?
Are they paying you in like doubloons? I
I-
mean, what's the reason they kept you there for? I mean, you got Krugerrands on Friday. Like, what's going on
man,
here?
I don't know what.
I mean, I get it. You got to pay the bills, right?
Right, yeah, I had to pay the bills, and like at that point in my life, I left college wrestling. I wasn't even working out. I was probably drinking more than I should and eating terribly. I actually kind of got a little fat, and
Everything you just said in the last 20 seconds, like knowing you now and how long I've known you, it's like the exact opposite of the human being
Right.
that I see sitting across from me.
and
Yeah.
it was incredible that I don't know what, like I was like and finally one day, I was like, I gotta get out of this. I gotta stop. And so started looking for another job. Found a job being a loan officer. So for
Interesting.
for purchasing and refinancing homes. When
So you were like on the transaction side of the house, like
I was the guy who basically got you your loan for your house.
I'm going through that process right now.
Yeah.
I don't super enjoy it actually.
No, so you have a loan officer who's probably helping you out, but then you have to deal with the underwriter.
That's it. Well, it's actually a woman in this case.
Yeah. And then
In all fairness, she's been awesome, but I hate that where you like provide all of this information, right? Like,
And then the guy's like, that's not good enough.
Well,
I
not-
need a letter that states why you did this.
well, it's that, but then it's like you provide like all these documents, and then you wait, and you don't get any information. You don't know, and the people judging you, for lack of a better term, they don't know anything about you. You're just pieces of your
Right.
numbers on a piece of paper. It's just
Yeah.
I find that the waiting. Like right now, we're selling our house and we're buying another one at exactly the same time. Like I
Yeah.
couldn't have more juggling balls in the air.
Right.
And like the phone will ring from the lady, the loan officer, the woman. And it's just like, God,
Yeah.
I want it to be good news, but I'm afraid to
what
answer.
do you need? And especially with your
Oh.
job now, because you're not.
All my income is 1099,
Right.
which scares the piss out of lenders.
Oh yeah, of
'Cause-
course, because it could just go away.
Well, it could go away, and I can also get creative because I'm a consultant. I can get creative with my deductions, so I could write down my income.
Yeah.
I could basically take advantage of the tax strategies that very wealthy people do to lower their income.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that I'm not making money, but on my tax returns, which is all they care about,
Yep.
I can make it look low, so it makes them super uncomfortable. But yeah, it's
It's not an easy process.
all right. So you went from
And so I
a
went-
job of a person that I despise
Yeah.
to good. I like
Yeah,
this pattern here.
So now I'm a loan officer, right? And I did that job for 3 years, and I bounced around. So this was in the subprime market. I don't know if you remember this or if you were purchasing homes at this time, but
I bought my first home in Virginia Beach at the optimal time, the low, and then sold it at the high, and then just sunk those profits right into a house in
man.
Santee, right at the peak of the market. And I think I might have heard the hinges on the trap door opening as we walked out of that house.
Yes.
I experienced both sides. I hit
Yeah.
both sides of the bell curve on that one.
Yeah, so I started in the subprime side. I mean, I was dealing with people who had, in bankruptcy, and I'm giving these people, I'm refinancing all of their money into their house, and it was mind blowing what we were able to do. I'm not gonna lie to you.
So what you're saying is it's not a surprise that the financial markets melted down because of the mortgage prices
No,
or the crisis?
What? There was a movie actually that was made about this, the subprime market.
Get short.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you remember those two guys at the bar who were like,
Yes, they
making
relied
tons
on
of-
strippers.
Right.
You were that guy?
I wasn't that guy.
You were that guy.
But
That's all right. I can read
but
between the lines there.
But I was like, I mean, these guys. I watched that movie and I was like, oh my gosh, that was exactly what it was. It was insane. I mean, I remember refinancing a lady who had a 500 credit score.
That's strong.
And yeah, it was unbelievable. And a bankruptcy. She's in a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, I think. And
It was ongoing?
oh yeah, she was
Oh,
in
my.
it. And I got to refinance her house and basically put all of her debt into her house. But I was saving her like $700 a month in payment wise.
Yeah,
right?
see, you're singing the same tune. My father-in-law, he used to be in the mortgage business as well, and he specifically worked with subprime.
Subprime, yeah.
And it was, and
It was-
he was honest. I mean, he would get crazy commissions, and the thing was,
Yeah.
he could take all these different debts and roll it into one monthly payment that was lower.
Way lower, like $1,000 a month lower.
But they didn't understand.
But then,
you know what I mean?
you could add points into
yeah.
the loan to that, and that because that was how you made money.
He was points on the front end, points on the back
Yeah,
end. The brokers were
right.
getting points, and these people. Basically, he has said in no uncertain terms, it's like if you could get them to focus on their monthly payment
Right.
and can show a difference in their life, that they would basically saddle up to. They're like, points are invisible to me. Look at this monthly
no,
payment.
because
That's all I want.
and that was the thing. It was like, and like you were, and to get the sale, you basically had to like find that fine line because they could shop around because there was lots of subprime
sure.
loan officers out there, or mortgage companies out there, and so it wasn't like you could like completely just hammer these people. You had to like find that line to where like I deserve money because I'm giving you this great deal. And so
Oh boy.
I actually wasn't like a loan officer. I was like an assistant to a guy who was a loan officer, but I helped him work a lot with it. So yeah, it was awful. It was just as bad as the telemarketing.
How long did you hang in there?
I did that for 3 years. Yeah.
Oh my
But
God,
but
man.
I watched it shift. I went
Yeah.
from subprime to the A side, and then to where I worked for like Countrywide, I think.
Yeah.
Countrywide. So that was basically then you were just dealing with, hey, you basically try to find your friends and families and like people to do loans for.
So you went from the Wild West to a pretty regulated. I mean,
Right.
everything got regulated more or less
right, exactly.
after. And from what I've heard from people I still keep in contact with in the financial industry, it's teetering back towards the Wild West.
Really?
I mean, to a certain degree, yeah. Like they're doing stated income loans again.
Oh wow. Yeah. They used to do first and second. You could do first and second mortgages, and then they completely banished seconds.
Yeah, because that's how people were sliding in for their down payments.
They were doing the 80-20.
Yeah.
Because then you didn't have to pay PMI.
Correct.
Right. So,
So you did a year and a half as a telemarketer, 3 years as a mortgage broker. What was next?
and so at the second year of being a loan officer, I met a guy named Mike Singer. And so Mike was like, this is a good story actually. I like this story. So Mike was a big dude, and he came in and I actually started working out again when I became a loan officer. Started going back to the gym, Gold's Gym, crushing it.
I was going to say, what were you doing?
Doing bodybuilding.
Buys and back, chest and tries.
Exactly.
I only did that for 8 years. I don't know what you're talking
what
about.
else would you do?
And I would do
Mondays?
legs. I would do legs on Wednesday, and that would be like running. That was my leg day. I ran.
I never did leg day either. I know exactly. My buddy used to be like, who was it? Barry Sanders never squatted, or some great football players like he never squatted. You don't need to squat either. I'm like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And
Just focus on the chest and tries.
right,
You know,
exactly.
Fill that T-shirt
Just
out.
crush it.
All right, so you get back into
So
the iron paradise.
So I'm back in Gold's Gym crushing it, and I met this guy, and he's like, yeah, man, I'm gonna go be a Navy SEAL one day. He's like, it's something I've grown up wanting to be, and I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Growing up in landlocked Missouri, I knew about Marines and I knew about Army Rangers.
Yeah, that makes
and
sense.
that was it. I didn't even really know what a Navy SEAL was, and nobody in my family was in the military. You know, we were actually all. They were all pipe fitters. My whole family's like pipe fitters. So, you know.
This is strong. I mean,
Hey, yeah, and they do great. And
Yeah.
they still do. You
and
know?
without people doing that job, guess what? This country sucks.
Right, exactly. And so I never really wanted to do that job. I never wanted to be a pipe fitter. So
I wanted to be a pipe hitter.
Damn right. I wanted to be in the pipe hitters club.
Yep.
So he's like, I'm like, I start looking into this, and the guy's like, he's like, hey, and they do this stuff called CrossFit. Some of them do this stuff called CrossFit.
What year was this?
This is in 2000 and probably 4.
Okay. Wow, he
so-
was a little early
Yeah.
on that train. Okay.
Yeah. And so, I was like, and I started looking into it, and then one day he's like, hey man, you wanna go do CrossFit with me? And so this is January of 2005, and I was like, sure. So that was when I started doing CrossFit. Was January 2005. I literally did it once, and I never stopped doing it.
Yeah, you can kind of tell.
It was just like, boom, all right, I love this. This is amazing. And then so I started really researching the Navy SEAL stuff, reading the books, watching the documentary that we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
the Dick Couch books.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hey, I thought Rogue Warrior was a nonfiction book. When I first was trying to figure out, like, you know, because for whatever reason for me it was super magnetizing, right? And I just knew it's what I wanted. All my friends were taking their SATs and college applications. I didn't do any of that, which in hindsight was a terrible plan, but it worked out well because I mean I didn't know the staggering injury rate or the roll rate.
Right.
But I could find The Men with Green Faces, the traditional book that all team guys have read. Yeah. And then I stumbled across Rogue Warrior and literally thought it was a nonfiction. Should have probably realized that, but I was a very malleable young man at the time, realized that the things that happen in that book just don't happen. And so, yeah, you had some advantages, but you also, it seems like, found some things that were on the fringe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So started researching it, and then obviously, you know, getting really sick and tired of being a loan officer and being in the business world, to be honest. And decided, I was like, hey, man, this is my time now or never. So in 2000 and I want to say I like, you know, signed my paperwork in 2006.
What got you to finally go to the recruiter and draw up the enlistment paperwork?
I think it was just my age. You know, I was past that age. You know what was weird was growing up, I always, because you know so little, I used to be like, oh man, I want to see if I can make it through like boot camp. You know, like a military boot camp.
Yeah.
And you
probably
know,
watch Full Metal Jacket. And you're like,
right.
damn.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. And so I'm like, yeah, I got to see if I can make it through something like that. Growing up thinking that, but never really like thinking I wanted to be in the military, or having that drive to want to do that. And so, you know, college wrestling, whatever, that helped with that kind of like. But then once that was over, it was like, okay, what am I doing? Like, is this it? Really? Am I gonna? I remember sitting in a cubicle, being a loan officer, like being like, is this where I'm gonna be in like 30 years? And if
I can't even imagine you in that environment. Like I'm sitting here, like thinking of like the white T-shirt. I'm thinking you would be clip-on tie type guy.
I never wore a tie. Never wore a tie. I wore, you know, I wore like a polo.
Did you have a pocket protector?
No, man.
Damn it. I'd imagine in my mind, I'm picturing you as with a clip-on tie and a pocket protector, and it's strong. Fake glasses with just glass in them, not actually lenses.
I had the swing line stapler, you know, just crushing it. And I'm just sitting there being like, man, is this really where I'm gonna be in 30 years? And you know.
And so it was the influence through your buddy who kind of
and
he
so
put
was
the
like,
seed of the
and I was like,
SEAL tree in.
This is really cool. Then, you know, starting to read more about it, like you said, with the books and all that kind of stuff, being like, oh wow, this is the hardest military training there is. And then that got me really interested. And then doing CrossFit and drinking that Kool-Aid and becoming a crackhead with the CrossFit stuff, like back in 2005, I was doing more than just the workout of the day. But I was always going to CrossFit.com doing just the workout of the day. But then I would do like 3 or 4 more workouts that day. CrossFit workouts. I would just look at them. I would just look at them and be like, yeah, I'm gonna do that. And I just remember, how I just like, man, I loved it, and it was awesome. And I would like.
I mean, it served you well in Buds.
No, it did. Yeah.
I don't remember. I mean, like you see hundreds of students as an instructor, and I vaguely remember teaching your class, but I definitely remember like you've always had an engine. Like I would force the students to do stuff they didn't want to and punish them with wall balls and probably a variety of other things that would have got me fired.
Oh man, you were a great instructor because you always did it with a smile, and you did it like you talked like you're talking right now. You're always calm.
I tried never to yell. I would reinforce. I would, like as I was driving to work, because I remember myself as a student. I'm like, the guy who yelled, it's just like I don't care.
White noise.
White noise.
Yeah.
I wanted to scare students by talking quietly.
Exactly. Like you were just like, man, this, and you punished us. I'm not gonna lie, you punished us. You put us through. I've probably told a story in front of you a million times, but some of the most heinous things I've ever had to do.
I didn't find them to be that hard.
It's because you weren't doing them.
That's right. I was drinking coffee.
That's right. Oh, man. The one where you were like, what did you say? You're like, this will not be over quickly. You will not enjoy this.
Hopefully I lived up to my word.
This beatdown is going to be epic. That was the line. This beatdown is going to be epic.
I did get creative towards the end where I got sat down a few times. They're like, listen, you can't do that.
Right.
I'm like, well, can I do it when you're not here?
Yeah.
Like the commanding officer's upset, but he's not going to be here next week. Can I do it then?
He won't see it, and no one's going to know.
I looked at being a Buds instructor as being a privilege. I mean, I got to go back and largely pick the people that I wanted to work with. I mean, look at that Team 3 when we both ended up at Team 3. Like 40 guys from that era ended up there.
Yeah.
And that OEF deployment I did, I'm sitting there next to guys up in a sniper Overwatch, and it's like, didn't I just put you through Buds like 2 years ago? Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly, and that's the thing that a lot of people forget is that you will leave that instructor role and go back to a team. Those guys do, and then
they have memories.
And those people don't forget.
No,
you remember the people you hate.
Yeah, I saw hundreds of students. They saw probably 24 instructors their entire time. I remember ones that I didn't like who were just seemed to be there for themselves, or they were having a competition to see, oh, let's go and beat this. Like you'd hear them like, oh, this beating's going to be, mine's going to be way worse than yours. And it's like, what? That's pointless.
Right. You realize that some of these people are going to make it through it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you do.
Yeah, right.
Otherwise, you're going to be in a bar and you wake up on the floor like, I don't understand why I got cold cocked. It's like, because you're an asshole.
Because you were a prick.
Yeah, Buds was, but I remember you in Buds, because I used to always do the workouts with the students too, which is another thing.
You didn't do actually CrossFit workouts.
I did, yeah, because that's fully what I was doing at the time. I mean, I still work out with that. I'm less tied to the name, but the methodology to me is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life.
Right.
But I remember when I first got there, one of the things that I think a lot of the other instructors did not like, I was like, hey, you're going to do it with them.
Yeah. Like, you had that. There was that one corpsman guy.
Chad.
I don't remember his last name. But yeah, like that dude, he would just always give you so much trouble, but he was kind of fat and overweight. And and if anybody saw him and met him, you'd be like, there's no way this guy's a team guy.
Hence the point. Like, you can't hold people to, like, that's my theory. Like, you cannot hold people to a standard you can't do yourself. Like, and the students would beat me all the time, and I could care less.
Right. It
like,
wasn't.
Yeah, one of my favorites was like sprinting over the berm and doing the pull-ups and the dips. Like, I love those workouts.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah, and the students would crush me as they should. And it's like, yeah, right on. I don't care.
Right.
I'm going to do this properly, and if you beat me, like, that's totally fine. Like, that's actually the goal. I'm trying to build you.
I think I remember that was actually the only times you did yell was when you were like getting mad because people were trying to cheat to beat you.
Well, that's the only way to beat me.
Right.
It's cheating. I've never been beaten by somebody who didn't cheat.
Fact.
I think.
Fact. So.
Yeah, man. So, yeah, you start. I mean, it treated you well for sure. I mean, God, it was impressive.
No, it was good. I remember feeling like the physical part of Buds wasn't the hardest thing I'd ever done. I actually thought that college wrestling physically was probably the hardest thing I'd been through. It's
not physically that hard, and I try to tell people that. They're like, oh, man, it was like, how did you make it through that? And it's like, well, one day at a time.
I wouldn't say it's physically easy.
It's not easy.
But it's not as challenging. Like
people who tell me about their training programs to train for, like, Ironmans.
Right.
I'm like, hey, that's
crazy.
What you're doing is harder than any day at Buds. When you're putting in that volume and that mileage, and yeah, you get hammered from time to time. And
I think the thing that makes it physically harder is the no sleep, the stress.
For sure.
You know, like that.
The temperature, exposure.
Yeah, you're inducing stress and then also giving the physical demand. Where a professional triathlete, those types of people, they're getting the best food, the best nutrition,
controlled.
the best recovery. Right, it's
Yeah.
very controlled. And so,
Did you guys ever eat boxed lunches on the beach?
Oh, MREs on the beach, of course.
I remember we're in Hell Week talking
Second
about
phase is all MREs. I feel like
your class didn't deserve real food. I remember.
Right.
Not that I remember your class at all, but I feel like you didn't deserve real food.
I can see that.
And for people who don't know what MREs are, just throw that in the Google machine, and you should order one.
God.
Don't order the 5 Fingers of Death, which is the hot dog one, but like get yourself a nice beef stew one and just order it at your house and eat it and try to live off that for 6 months straight.
When the most nutritious thing that comes out of that is Reese's Pieces, that's how you know it's good.
You got leverage though.
Right.
You can barter with some Reese's Pieces.
Oh, bro, you got Reese's Pieces. It was a good day.
And a peanut butter and jelly.
Yep.
Strong,
Right.
like strawberry.
That bread. Oh man.
People will end up listening to this and be like, "What are you guys talking about?"
Right.
Like, yeah, we're deep into the weeds on that one.
Just look it up.
But I remember in Hell Week, like you can talk about no control. They would give us boxed lunches for like mids rats.
Right.
And I remember eating fried chicken one time, and it was the crunchiest fried chicken I've ever eaten because I dropped it in the sand.
Yes.
And just picked it up and kept eating it, and probably ate an entire handful of sand. It's just like didn't even
feels-
care. Yeah, just grit like.
No.
Yeah, I love that sand in my teeth.
The things you do in buds are pretty hilarious. I mean, I peed my pants 7 times a day. It got to the point where
Anytime I went near the water, I would just pee. Yeah.
yeah, it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
You just peed your pants. And I remember
That's
actually
not going to make a lot of sense to a lot of people. I
I-
apologize to those listening to this
Right.
at some point who have no understanding what we're saying. It's not like we're peeing our pants in jeans.
Yeah.
We're near the ocean
No.
all the time, and
Oh,
you're
yeah.
always in it, so you just
you're
pee.
always wet, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You rinse it off pretty quick, but I didn't get chafed as bad as some guys got chafed, but I had a little bit of chafing behind my knees, and so it got to a point where I had to actually stop peeing my pants because it would burn.
Yeah.
So
God, if you had mentioned that, I would have forgotten that. But yeah,
yeah.
people peeing, you'd know because they're like, ah!
Right.
Hey, man, stop peeing in your pants.
Don't pee your pants, man. It's not cool.
So you made it through. Team 3 was your first team, right?
Yeah.
What'd you think of the SEAL teams? Was it what you thought it would be?
It was
because again, we were at war, right? And so
I graduated SQT, got my trident, and deployed 9 days later.
that's aggressive.
Yeah, I went to
Where to?
We went out west in Iraq, western
Okay,
Iraq.
by the Werve.
We were I was in Rawa.
Okay, yeah, that is
Yeah,
pretty far out west.
Yeah. And so I was actually I was Team 3 Delta Platoon.
Okay.
So meeting Chris Kyle out there.
Oh, you were out there during that time period.
Yeah, so Chris,
That's right.
Chris was my LPO. And I was only there for 2 months, a very short stint.
Yeah.
But
Great exposure though.
yeah, no, it was in a sense it was. I got to go on, a few missions, a few ops, and so that was really cool, getting to see that. But as you know, at the tail end of a 6-month deployment where the tides had turned in Iraq,
Yeah.
the basically everything had slowed down at that point. The Iraq was most of the Iraqis were pro-government, pro-US at that time.
The surge was at its peak. It was very that we had restricted mobility for
Very,
the
very
insurgency. It was very tough. Yep.
Yeah, and so, you have a bunch of team guys at the end of a 6-month deployment who were going on a bunch of ops, now not going on ops. And so things got really,
Yeah.
really interesting you're straight out of SQT. Yeah, come on over here, buddy. Let me show you how big and bad you are.
Yeah.
And so, learned some lessons over there, and that was awesome. Chris was a great guy. He, we were treated accordingly, basically.
Yeah.
And so
we've all been there. I
Yeah.
spent a lot of time taped up when I was a
yeah,
new guy. It happens.
Choked out every day.
Taped up to a spine board,
Right.
taped up in a wall locker,
Yeah.
taped up with my hands to my own head. Like I get it,
My first night in Iraq, I was wet and sandy. It was just like Buzzkid. It was great.
Wow. Yeah, that's probably not the intro that you were looking for, but I mean, people don't understand the SEAL community.
it was a
We're
good time.
extremely rough on each other, but there's a lot of love there too.
No, it was great.
So you came back from that, and then
Came back from that and then started my first real workup.
Yep.
Went through the workup and then deployed again to Iraq. That time we went to Fallujah. Again, really slow time.
yeah,
That was
different.
that was
It's not the
2010.
Fallujah of the movies that people watch.
No, not for me. It was very, very slow. We did get to go on, some missions. got to do some really fun stuff. It was a really cool experience because we got to do the DAs, the direct action missions.
Yep.
You know, going into houses and stuff like that in cities.
Which is a huge misconception. People think that's all of what our job is.
Right.
When I talk to people, I try to be super honest about the career path, and it's like you maybe spend 1% of your career doing that.
Right.
If you're lucky.
And that for me, I thought it was the funnest thing that we did. You know.
I agreed. And everything we did was training to get to that point.
Right.
But the actual chance to go, it's probably like people who play pro football. Like they spend all their time trying to get to the actual Super Bowl.
Right.
And a lot of teams don't make it.
Yeah.
And a lot of players don't make it. And it's pretty analogous to the SEAL teams too. I mean, there's a lot of guys who don't make it.
Right.
To that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so crazy how you can talk to 5 different team guys and you would get 5 completely different stories. You know, like you wouldn't, like, maybe not so much anymore. Like now most guys have probably gone to, you know, over there and seen either Iraq or Afghanistan. But when I first got in there, like, oh, that guy, PACOM, 7 tours to PACOM or Guam, you know, and then
PACOM is the Philippines
Right.
people,
Yeah.
where you are exercising your 12-ounce curl much more than your front sight focus.
So right. So it was really cool that, I mean, like I said, it wasn't a ton of experience, but we got some experience, and so that was really cool. And then my last deployment in 12 was to Afghanistan, and obviously, so it's a completely different theater.
And
so,
again, too, in 2012, a changed environment.
right, very slow again, not nearly. And we were up in Faryab province, so up north, and not a ton going on.
Yeah.
And that was the deployment I got injured on. So then I came home and at 4 months in to a 9-month deployment, and so and that was really it. Then I went over to TradeEt for a few years to rehab the knee.
Yeah.
And
You blew out just about everything?
Just about everything on my left.
All
knee.
the CLs?
Yeah, all of them.
MCL, ACL, PCL.
Yeah, ACL, PCL, MCL, and meniscus.
And you got, what do you have in there now? You have some cadaver.
I have cadavers going through the ACL and the PCL. I don't have the MCL. That's still, the doc was like,
Isn't that the one that'll kind of heal itself?
kind of, but it's a lot of times it will, but there's not really a good place to put a screw in, is what the guy said, is what the doc said. And so he's like, yeah, we really can't do much for that. And you don't, it actually doesn't engage except for at like a very high flexion and very low flexion degrees. So it's not super as important as like your ACL or your PCL.
I can definitely tell it in your gait. Like you can
Yeah.
same thing. Like I have a ridiculous lope in my gait as well too because of my ankle, but you can tell. I mean, like
Yeah.
the stuff you do now is still ridiculously amazing. But I remember asking you a couple years ago, like, how long does it take you to actually warm that sucker up?
Oh man, it takes a while. It still does, and it's been 5 years, and it's still like I don't have full flexion in the left knee.
Does it feel normal though? Like
It constantly feels swollen. Like
Really?
I feel like there's always swelling in it.
do you have to do a lot of icing on it to keep that stuff down, or
I do a lot of compression,
Yeah.
not so much icing, a lot more compression. But it's crazy when I start to take a few days off from like either squatting or running, like how much better it starts to feel. So
let me make a
Weird.
hypothesis here
Weird.
based on what you just said. I'm going to make
Weird.
a huge stab into the dark.
right,
Maybe you do an insane workload.
nah,
So, I mean, people don't know. We've known each other for quite some time now, coming on 10 years.
Yeah.
And so while you were in the Navy, you were competitively competing
Right.
at the CrossFit Games.
yeah,
And for people who don't understand what that is, the volume of work required just in that weekend alone is mind-boggling. But the work you have to do leading up to that is insane.
right.
Like, talk me through an average training day for you.
Right now, I mean it's
Well, you just came off, so you won the regional, right, in Del Mar?
I won the regional in California.
So you just had last weekend was a competitive weekend, similar.
Yep.
Probably, it's not the same amount of work as the games, right? Because the
No,
game,
not nearly. Not. It's only 6 to 7 workouts typically at regionals, in 3 days. Where at the games you're looking at, it's typically 4 days of actually competing. It's over a 5-day period though.
Yeah.
And so and you typically do 15 workouts.
Yeah, you guys get smashed
Yeah.
into.
Yeah.
It's like turning sand into glass. It's pretty.
Right.
I exercise as a hobby. You are exercising professionally, and I'm just sitting back like, no, pass, not doing it.
Right.
But so I mean, how do you prep for it? What's a strong training day for you?
A strong, you're doing 5 to 6 workouts in a day, and that's like, so I typically start off with like something to get the body moving. So like some sort of like a little bit of conditioning, lighter weight, maybe more gymnastic style stuff like.
So I'm going to stop you right there because the terms you're using, lighter weight,
Yeah.
light conditioning. What's a lightweight for you?
I mean, it just depends on the movement. You can go down.
Front squat.
135, 185, 205. Those are lighter loads.
You disgust me.
But so I'll start off with something like that, like maybe like a bike muscle up deadlift or something like that. Lighter lighter deadlift, maybe like 225, 275, and then I'll move into more of like a strength bias, either ollie lifting or squatting or deadlifting. I'll do like a 6x3 routine with that. Do a little bit of accessory work for that, whatever movement I'm doing, and then I'll do another like conditioning piece, more like traditional CrossFit, I guess you could say.
A Metcon, if you will.
A Metcon, if you will, yes. And so do that. I'll typically take a break at around that point, have lunch and another coffee, and then.
We're gonna get into the coffee here in a minute.
Good. and then I'll come back out, maybe hit another strength movement, maybe not. At least do one more conditioning piece, and then a monostructural workout where it's like either just biking, just running, just rowing, or swimming. One of those.
How do you feel at the end of the day? Are you just smoked? Or are you used to this workload now?
It was actually funny. I was having this conversation with Dave the other day, where when you start to taper into a competition, like it's hard to taper into CrossFit because your body gets so used to being hammered with the volume that you do that when you take like 2 days off, you get like when I start competing on Monday, I'm like, man, the volume is so low here at the regional as compared to what I'm doing, but I'm sore, and it's because I took like 2 days off prior to, and your body just like, what is happening? Why are you doing this?
Oh my God.
And so
I told you my new routine, right? It's awesome. I optimize recovery. It's 28 days off.
Yes.
2 days on, but if it gets hard anytime during those 2 days, I just stop.
If your heart rate's over 85, is it too high?
Yeah, I mean, I need to back it off.
Right,
I'm going for optimizing longevity, and you can go surprisingly enough really hard for 5 minutes if you've taken 28 days off. But you need some time off. Now, what this workload you guys do is absolutely,
and
it's mind-boggling.
It has progressed over the years. Like in 2011. My volume wasn't near this. I mean, obviously, I was also in a workup, and so
and then for people who don't understand, like you had a full-time job, and then you were doing the you weren't combatives, you were assaults, right?
I was assaults at Trade Ed, and actually, what was crazy is like you did not have the respect for instructors as at least I didn't have the respect for instructors. Like you didn't realize how much work they were putting into it as you. As a team guy, like, I'm in the teams. I'm an operator right now. Like everything's on us. Where these instructors, man, they are putting in hours. It was crazy. When I got to CQC, we would do 16-hour days, and you would be literally run after run after run, just like following these guys, and like your mind just starts to melt.
Yeah, and so what he means by run after run is these guys are teaching assaults is basically, to give a broad definition, it's the actions that you take once you get to a structure, like how do you maneuver through a structure safely and take down a target. So, and to do that, we have structures that have ballistic walls, and then the cadre gets up into the rafters and watches you from above so they can give you feedback on angles or distance and all that stuff. But and try to remember details 100 runs into it.
Oh man. And and then you have to walk back through the house and debrief room by room and remember like the littlest, like, oh, hey, you overswept over here a little bit, or you checked up on fire.
Yeah, or this room was a complete clusterfuck. We're not even going to talk about what happened in here.
Right. So those days actually were, I almost feel like a little bit harder than when I was actually in a workup and operating as a team, because at least when you're operating, you're moving.
Well, you show up and you train, you clean your stuff off, and you take off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the stuff that you're doing is physical. Where as an instructor, you're standing around a lot. And like, man, I just remember how bad my feet and legs would get. Like I'm just like just felt so stagnant, you know.
And during that time, you still had to get it in, right?
Yeah.
You still had to pay the man to take a phrase out of your playbook.
The man was paid for
Yeah.
sure. And
Which at the end of the day, I want to write him an IOU most of the time. You know what I mean? It's, can I pay you tomorrow?
you know, and he doesn't. I don't think he likes that very much.
One of my favorite phrases, man. I love the fact that you hashtag that on everything. Just pay the man or pay him. Like you got to put the work in. Rent's due.
Exactly.
Every single day.
You know, people always ask me what it means and what it stands for, and like how I try to explain it is like, you know, like you don't own your fitness. You don't own your physical, whatever word I'm looking for.
Station,
here.
wherever you're at.
Whatever. Like you don't own how physically fit you are today. Like it will go away just as fast as you got it if you don't
Seems
do
like
it anymore.
faster, actually.
Right, actually way faster.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's kind of like you have to pay the man every day, like rent's due, you know, kind of thing. So
I think
that's what it means for every person who asks me on social media.
Yeah, and take that a step farther in the SEAL community. Like, you only rent your trident, in my opinion, as well
for
too.
sure.
Like, you have to put the work in every single day because you rent your station in life and you write your station in the occupation, and it's due every day. You don't get to write IOUs.
No, you don't.
No,
you earn your training every day.
some people do.
Yeah,
not everybody.
Not everybody.
We'll save that list of names for later off the internet. So you're doing the combative stuff, and you're still competitive. What's the highest place you've ever finished at the games?
In 2011, I took second.
Do you think you can win?
Of course I do.
I know it's slightly rhetorical, but
I would not still be competing if I didn't.
All right.
I don't think I'll be the guy who hangs on just to hang on, just like for the glory days.
Yeah.
Like when I don't think that, I think my time will be up when I'm like, hey man, you just don't got it anymore. You know, you don't have it anymore. And so I used to be the person who looked at athletes and was like, man, why is that dude still playing? You know, like what is he doing? And then now that I'm in it and I'm in my later years as like for CrossFitters, I'm 33 years old.
Oh, you're a dinosaur.
I am.
You're being masters in 2 years.
No, I could be a masters next year. I'll be 34 in July. I'll be 34 at this year's games.
What's crazy is that's a masters category.
Right, exactly. 35, I know, right. And so I used to look at those athletes and be like, what are you doing? You know, like just step away. You're making yourself look bad. And then now being in it, I have so much more respect for those guys because
well, it makes sense. You're living it yourself.
Yeah, exactly. You start to live it and you start to understand how much work and how much you start to love what you do. And it's like, why would I stop doing it if I am still competitive? And I can still do this for a living and still make money to, pay my bills right now doing this. Or what am I going to do after this? Go back to,
I'll kill you. If you go back to telemarketing or being a loan officer, I will put it out there that I will murder you.
Yes. I would murder myself.
I'll assist.
So,
be slightly Kevorkian-ish. I'll be present, but maybe or maybe not involved. It's no, I totally get it, man. And I think one of the things I like the most about the way you do it too is you're exposing your kids to it, your boys.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's you want to talk about like setting an example for, and I wish there was more example for young men. You know what I mean? They're like, hey, guess what? Learning about paying the rent.
Yeah. Like
I go to parent teacher conferences and you're probably not there yet, right? Like my oldest son now is 13.
That's crazy.
And 11 for my other one. So I go to parent teacher conferences and
you have young men. Those are young men.
They are young men.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to go to Montana on Tuesday. We got to go do some maintenance on our rental property up there. And I'm taking my 13-year-old with me. And I told him, like, hey, all we're doing is we're working with our hands. Leave your phone at home.
Yep.
We're going to detach. And, like, I've just got to pass on those lessons of hard work. Because I go to these school events, and I cannot talk to anybody. Right. I can't, like, and I want to argue with some of the things that are put out there. There's a lack of great examples for not even just young men, but I think young kids in general.
Right.
Like, I think my daughter is more of a sponge than my boys are,
really? To
some degree. Oh.
I don't have a daughter, so I don't have that experience. But I've heard that, like daughters obviously, look up to their daddies more. And so.
Well, anytime I want to go work out, like, can I climb on the pull-up bar? Can I play on the rings? Like, they're watching.
Right.
The deal kids are watching. And so you coach your kids.
Oh, yeah. Oh man,
that is a challenge. I might murder mine if I.
You have to.
I definitely would murder other people's kids.
That's way easier. That's actually way easier.
Well, you still have to go home with them.
Right, exactly. I coach my eldest in he's done 2 years of wrestling and 2 years of baseball now. And I asked him, for wrestling, for me, I was like, yes. I grew up playing baseball. Baseball was actually my first love, my first sport. I loved it.
What position?
I played growing up. I played catcher, and then once I switched to high school, I went to second base and outfield.
Nice. I played catcher all through high school ball. It was awesome.
Yeah. So and baseball is a great sport too. It's very different than wrestling. Two very different mindsets of people.
Well, one, you can kick daisies in the outfield because you never get the ball.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I wouldn't recommend kicking daisies in the middle of a wrestling match.
No, never. You don't play with the dirt. You don't play with the mat on a wrestling mat. Like
No.
where the little kids are just playing with the dirt, and mind blowing.
Yeah.
And, but it's I love coaching the wrestling, and I'm coaching little. So you coach wrestling in our program starts from 5 to junior high, basically anything before high school.
Yeah.
So it's a very different range of people in the room, and and I love it because the parents, like, obviously these parents are putting them in the wrestling so they understand what they're getting themselves into. It's not it is a manly sport where you're
going to put
you're putting
another person.
You're putting hands on another man.
It's
and
the gateway or termination point for a lot of fights. I mean, like you're involved in fighting somebody else.
Yes,
which I think is essential for people to experience.
You have to. If you don't know how to handle yourself, exactly, it's just not good. It's trouble. And so, but I love it because you get these kids in there and. Man, they just start to feel sorry for themselves, and I do a little bit of yelling. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the quiet professional as you
elevated voice.
Yeah,
Describe it as an elevated voice.
Yes, and
well, you better knock that shit off.
And these boys, and man, I mean these boys pay the man. I'll tell you what, they at the end of practice. They go home and they are tired. They do not. Their parents are very happy that they got their energy that they needed to out.
Hey, speaking of from the perspective of being a father with young men, that's what they need.
Exactly.
You have to deplete their energy bar.
Yeah.
Like right now, I'm dealing with my oldest son. It's like video games. They want to play video games, and it's like I'm throwing it away. Like
that's my line. That's going in the trash.
Yeah, but this one is literally gonna go. We're gonna go take it back to the GameStop or whatever it is, and get the money from it because it's for one, it's totally addictive. I mean, I like to play video games when I was younger too, but I just not to the level that I see some of these other people playing. But there's no lessons to be learned from that game.
No,
it's not preparing them for anything in life other than instant gratification, which I have yet to find anywhere in life that has anything that has meaning.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, so you're teaching younger kids.
Yeah, and like it's really it's fun because you actually get to watch them go from like literally not even knowing how to stand in a wrestling stance. To then they're going out there doing double legs and putting in half Nelsons and cradling kids up, at like 5 and 6 years old, and it's really impressive. Like how much.
And it's a skill that'll serve them well for life.
Right, exactly. And so it's really fun. I love it, and exactly like if they smart off and they learn discipline and where like, hey, when a wrestling coach is talking to you, you look at them. You look at them in the eyes. I think that's another thing that a lot of little kids don't get is
notice that too, the avoidance of eye contact.
They won't make eye contact.
Yeah.
And so I remember talking to this little guy, and he was like, and he kept looking over at his mom, and so I got right in his face, and I was like, hey, I'm talking to you. I'm like, your mother is not out here helping you right now. If you want to go sit by your mom, go sit by your mom, and she can teach you wrestling.
No one can help you right
now.
But
when I'm talking to you, you're going to look me in the eyes.
What was the response?
He looked me in the eyes, and he did. And then actually most of the time after that he did too as well. Every once in a while you have to remind them because they're little, and like the repetitiveness of it is how they start to learn. And so
that's one of the main things for my kids. Like when they have to go and introduce themselves to people, and it's like shake their hand hard.
Yep.
Look them in the eye and say, "Hi, my name is fill in the blank."
Right.
And I make them do that.
And they should.
Yeah.
And it's a good life lesson to learn because there is nothing worse than a dead fish handshake. A guy who doesn't make eye contact.
Sometimes I do that to people intentionally, though, just to mess with them. I'll just hold my hand out and I won't even squeeze back, and I'll kind of look down. I get the I mean, obviously, granted, I have problems, too many to list in the time we have available. But what you should do, Josh, is do that to somebody just to see the response.
The old dead fish look down.
Do it today when we go to the event. Just dead fish somebody's hand and
nice to meet you.
Yeah. Hey, how's it going? They'll be like, oh my God. No, you crush their hand with a vice-like
Yeah,
grip so that you
right.
want to see a little bit of a flinch, and you look at their eyes and
Yeah.
you let them know that, yes,
You want to establish dominance.
yeah, if
when
this
you-
were to
when you
go
shake their
bad,
hand, right?
this is the side of the equation that you're going to be on. Welcome
Right.
to the show.
Welcome to the show.
No, that's awesome. So what do you do for who was telling me about your creative remediation? I heard something about sprints and burpees
Oh,
and all of
yeah.
my favorite tools,
Oh, we do a lot of sprints and a lot of burpees, and
which are perfect for kids of that age
Oh,
because you
and-
can't really mess up either of those.
and burpees are actually semi like a sprawl for wrestling.
Oh,
So
yeah, I thought
it's
about
like,
that.
hey, get your legs back. It's like a sprawl, and so it really actually works out. And I mean, I'm talking these kids are running and they'll start to feel real sorry for themselves. And I'm like, hey, as long as you guys are feeling sorry for yourself, we're just gonna keep going.
Yeah.
And so
Let's work that sorry right out.
Yeah, you. And so
It's like me as a buds instructor when I would just be like, is that blood in the water?
Right.
All right.
Start to circle.
Yeah.
And then, but the wrestling kids, I like it because they respond really well. Where the baseball team, man, that has been a struggle because it is a very, very different mindset.
Well, it's a totally different sport.
Right, completely different. You don't have to be as physically fit. You don't have to be as in shape.
You can sit in left field all game.
Right.
And kick daisies.
I mean, basically, like when we warm up, we do like a little bit of like moving just to get the blood flow and wake up their CNSs and everything like that. Wake
Yeah.
them up a little bit, and man, they come off this little warm up and they're like, "I'm so tired," and I'm like, "What is happening right now?"
you just jogged around the bases twice.
Right.
You can't be exhausted.
You ran out to the foul pole twice, bro.
Yeah.
And the parents are very different too. I still, there's actually one kid, man. He loses his mind. He every time he strikes out, he takes his helmet and he throws it in his bat, and I can't take it. And so
How old is this child?
This kid is 6 or 7.
I mean, let's put that on an extended timeline and see what that's going to look like.
Exactly. I mean, I can't imagine what that would look like in 10 years in 10 years when he's 16, like in a high school baseball game. And so
What do his parents do when he does that?
nothing. And so it's
Have you considered just going over and kicking the shit out of the father?
oh, and the father's in the military. And so
I would reconsider that as a solid
Yeah.
option then.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm like I pull him aside and I don't allow it. I don't let I'm like I'm going to try to fix this because I know it's basically he's only doing it because he's allowed to do it.
Yeah.
Right? And so you have to stop it.
He's been taught that he gets what he wants by having that outburst.
Exactly. So I pull him off to the side, and in our sport we don't. In baseball, you don't really like run and do burpees. Well, this little guy is gonna do burpees and he's gonna run, and so I make him take. I'm like, Ryan, put your helmet on and lift up your bat. And I just said his name.
That's fine.
It's all right.
There's a lot of people out there that
Yeah,
name
it's true.
that.
Right. And so I'm like, hey man, take your helmet off, and you're gonna place it on the ground nicely, and then you're going to place your bat down. And every time you put your helmet down and you put your bat down, that's how it's gonna look. And he looked at me and he's like, okay. And I'm like, and now we're gonna run and do burpees to learn from our
Yeah.
mistakes.
You need to
And-
turn that dude into like Musashi, like where he
Right.
treats those tools like, you know what I mean? Like it's like a
Right.
presentation and it, like the implements
Yeah.
of battle go down and there'll be no dust move.
Yeah.
Like you have to show respect.
Exactly.
That's what it
Like,
is.
These
at the end of the
these
day.
are your tools. These
Yeah.
are your tools for your sport. And so we start running and I'm like, so we're gonna run and do burpees. And if I see you doing it again, we're gonna do it until your legs fall off. He goes, and I make him again because he has really poor like making eye contact. And
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, look at me. Do you understand what I'm saying? And I make him acknowledge me and
Yeah.
understand. And so we start running. And after a little bit of time, I had gone by. I'm like, all right, buddy, grab your hat, grab your bat, get back up there. And I'm like, we can't have these outbursts, man. Like everybody, even Major League Baseball players strike out.
Yeah.
All right, you got to walk off the field and understand it's just a game. You're going to strike out sometimes. You're not going to strike out sometimes. It is what it is. He's like, all right, next at bat, strikes out, throws the helmet, throws the bat. Hey, Ryan, come on over here, buddy. Let's get back over here.
Let's readdress what we previously addressed.
Right.
But like what you're doing though is right. I mean, I hope people understand the importance of stopping that when you see it at a young age. Because
Yeah.
I mean, I've dealt with adults who basically are adults and they want to throw their helmet and they want to throw their bat.
Yeah.
And they get nowhere in life. Like life literally kicks their ass and they don't understand what's happening.
Exactly. That's the thing is like, if you just allow it, it's just going to keep happening and keep happening. It's like a dog who goes to the bathroom in your house, like
Yeah.
Unless
if you give him a treat afterwards,
Right.
like it's not going to reinforce.
He's probably
Yeah.
going to do it more.
Oh, buddy, here's some
Yeah.
macaroni. Not necessarily that I wouldn't give macaroni to a dog. That was a weird analogy. Maybe a bone.
I think you're talking about a kid there, but I got where you were going. So, so we go do it again, and about like halfway through it, he's like, he looks at me and he goes, "Coach, my legs are falling off," and I'm like, "No, they're not, buddy."
Yeah, not
And
even
so,
close.
And so we do it again, and we go over the same thing, and literally the next one throws the hat, throws the the bat, and I'm like, "Ryan, let's go, buddy." And I just, calmly take him over there, and he's getting better though, and that's that's all I can hope for is that he's starting to get it, and maybe next year his coach won't have to deal with it nearly as much. But
there's only one way his coach won't have to deal with it, and that's if his parents actually get involved.
Right, exactly.
Because you can only do so much if you're that outside influence. Like, I mean, I don't care if people think I'm an asshole, but I look at that behavior as 100% the parent's fault.
Oh, 100%.
You know what I mean? And
Guaranteed.
And again, the only solution to that, you can be like an introduction of antibiotics to that particular problem,
Right.
but they have to follow through on the treatment. Like
Yeah.
if they go home and reward behavior like that or say nothing to him, like if my kid did that,
Oh man, Ooh-wee.
he wouldn't even finish the game. Like
Nope.
he might, but he's going to come over and we're going to have a chat away where nobody can hear. And he's going to get a full explanation of understanding of how that is unacceptable at every
Yeah.
level.
Yeah.
And then if he does it again, I don't even know what's going to happen next.
Right.
But it's not going to happen again.
We're gonna keep talking, and we're gonna keep having
Yeah.
remediation, as we would say.
Yeah, that's
It's
doesn't
it's,
happen.
It's just unacceptable, and I try to treat, and I don't talk to like any other person on the team any other way than I would talk to my own kid.
For
you
sure.
know? And like that's
Yeah.
the thing is, so if my son were to be disrespectful to a coach, or
I'd lose my mind.
I would lose my mind, and so
Like the rules I have for my sons, like, and because I tell them, I'm like, listen, because bullying comes up a lot, you know,
yeah,
and I'm like, listen, like if I ever hear of you bullying somebody,
oh man,
it's gonna be your ass. And
Yeah.
but then I say, let me be very clear. If I ever hear of you not standing up for somebody
Right.
who's being bullied, I might have your ass worse.
That's I think even more important, like
Especially when, because for a while all three of the kids went to the same school, and I'm like, listen, when I drop you guys off at school, you are the Stump family.
Right.
Nothing comes in between that, and you had damn well better stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves.
right.
And of course, it's my daughter who does it. She somebody will say something like, "You can't talk to that." Wham! And I'm like, okay, Julia, honey, let's back that up just a little bit, right? Like the enthusiasm, your heart's in the right place,
Yeah.
but you're gonna make a name for yourself.
But
yeah,
it's amazing, and you know what, and all you have to do is tell them. And most kids, kids are good at heart, for the most part.
I think they come out good, man. I think we screw them up.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
And so it's interesting to see how well they respond to teaching them something like that, and how fast it takes effect. It's not like a thing that over a 5-year period. Oh yeah, my kid is helping out kids who can't help out themselves. It happens almost instantaneously.
Yeah, and then I found that when they have done that, it's super rewarding for them. So it reinforces the message that you want to, and then it also reinforces to the kid whatever the situation may. Maybe it's just they're just helping a kid out for whatever reason, like offering to pick up their backpack or helping somebody that struggles. It's like it changes everybody on both sides of that equation for the better, as opposed to the opposite. It drives me nuts, man. What I see, I don't know. The world doesn't make sense to me anymore.
It's interesting.
The
The thing I've kind of noticed with bullying is it seems like it comes from kids with older siblings who get picked on.
Oh, they're looking for an outlet to pass that on to somebody else.
Exactly. They have an older brother who they maybe wails on them a little bit, and so hey, now I found someone who's maybe smaller than me in size or whatever. So I'm gonna push that on to them.
Yeah, and honestly, to a degree, I get it. Kids are horrible to each other.
Right.
My kids at home, there's not a day that goes by without catastrophic screaming and injury, and they talk to each other in ways that I wish they did, and I address it. So there's some degree of
You're
kids.
not my brother. I hate you.
Oh, yeah.
You're not my friend anymore. You're not my friend anymore.
I'm not playing. I hope you die. I'm like, whoa.
Wait a minute.
So it's like kids are rough, right? I remember
Yeah.
being a kid too, and you say some
Right.
dumb shit from time to time, but it's and I'm okay with that. So sometimes my kids will come home and oh, I didn't have a good experience with this person. I'm like, no, of course the buzzword now, they'll say, oh, he was bullying me. I'm like, well, let's sit down and talk about it. Was he actually bullying you, or was the kid being an 11-year-old?
Yeah.
Because 11, especially 11 to 16-year-old dudes, they're not the nicest people.
No.
Like, you're gonna have verbal altercations.
Right.
You might have some shoving matches. Like, bullying would be is outside of that. And so,
Yeah.
and I want them to have a little bit of, I want my sons to have a little dirt on his fingernails. Like,
Yeah.
you got shoved. Okay, cool. Like,
Yeah, no big deal.
good. No big. You can tolerate it.
Right,
Life's
yeah.
gonna shove you around a little bit too. It's not gonna.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna create a safe space, which again is a topic. Don't even get me started on, and try to insulate you in this bubble of things that are not gonna be manifest themselves in real life. I want you to be
Right.
prepared for what happens in real life.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a mess, man.
It's like the whole, getting every kid gets a trophy. It's not a good thing. People think it was created that they thought it was like, oh yeah, this will help everyone, build confidence. No.
And instead, it devalues
Right.
the hard work.
It
And it devalues the lessons you can actually learn by putting in the hard work.
right. It basically says, hey, no matter what you do, you win, which is not the case in the real world.
That's my litmus test for almost everything, especially like when my kids ask me questions. I'll be like, the something that they learned in school. And it's like, okay, well, they know how to use Google better than I do. I'm like, find for me an example of that in real life. Like,
Right.
I have great appreciation for knowledge that comes from books, but like, let's just keep everything grounded in, are you likely to encounter this in your life or not? That should be the litmus test to me, is like,
Right.
does this actually happen, not in an academic environment, but in I left my front door for work or for my occupation or whatever it is. And to me, that's where like a lot of this stuff just falls flat, like the tolerance, you know what I mean? Or like, you can't say anything to anybody. We can't offend anybody. The
Right.
safe spaces, all that stuff.
Right.
It's like, I don't see that working. And I see large portions of the rest of the world using that as leverage against us. They're like, oh, that's awesome. That's totally a weakness. So we're just
Right.
going to crush you now.
Yeah.
It's not the way that I think we should be going.
It's not a good.
No.
I agree with you completely.
So what's next for you, man? 5 years from now, like you're saying, you're the athlete. You're getting a little bit older. You're
5 years, man. I'm still winning the CrossFit Games.
God
brother.
damn. Masters category, 40 to 41. I mean,
No, I won't be in the Masters. I don't think.
you don't want to do it?
I don't think the Masters is in my books, in my playbook right now.
So what do you have going on? So you do compete, but then again, you're diversifying, which I love to see people doing, right? So you linked up with Rich and Dan. You guys are doing the good dudes thing.
Good dudes thing, man. It's awesome. Right now
Two out of those three are good dudes. I mean, I'm not gonna tell you which one I think isn't. We'll leave that up in the air. Actually, I love all three of those guys. So.
Two are friends, one's an acquaintance.
No, they're awesome. And you got and where I was going with that is I want to get to the coffee stuff.
Oh yeah,
because you guys are
I kind of figured that's where you were going with it.
you guys are doing coffee, right?
I'm kind of heading it up, but yeah, it's gonna be obviously under the Good Dudes brand.
Yeah. Well, and let's start with the fact that you're a complete psychopath when it comes to coffee.
I'm a lunatic, and
you have a roaster at your house, right?
I have a roaster. I don't really do much roasting anymore. I used to. That's a whole nother story I could get into. So I travel with coffee. Like I don't.
So you brought coffee here from San Diego.
Oh, for sure.
So do you have a specific like carry-on case just for your
No,
your
I
morning
mean,
brew?
I just throw it in my bag, my carry-on bag. So, I typically carry an AeroPress, hand grinder, and then obviously like, getting hot water is really not that big of a deal. You can always just run the water through the coffee machine in your room. So that's what I did. And then, so we're starting the Good Dudes Coffee. It isn't up and running just yet. We had a couple snags.
It's always harder in practice than it is in concept.
And I'm still, like in training, so I'm kind of trying to stay focused right now. It's obviously like the heart of our season.
Yeah.
So I was trying to stay focused there. So I kind of put it on the back burner a little bit. After games, I probably will really like push back into it.
Well, how'd you get so into coffee in the first place?
Oh man, how much time?
I mean, obviously it's amazing, right?
Right. Yeah. I love
time. We got 7 minutes.
I love coffee. I actually didn't drink coffee though till I was on my second deployment in Iraq, and so actually no, it was my first deployment.
I didn't have a cup of coffee until 2003.
Oh wow!
And somebody slid me a gateway drug
Yep.
of iced mocha.
Yep.
I was like, this is chocolate deliciousness.
This is amazing.
And then for like 6 hours, I was like, this is awesome. I mean, I can't sleep. I'm very productive. Like first cup of coffee ever. I'm just like,
you're
woo!
focused. You're focused.
Yeah, at the Green Bean Coffee Shop in Uzbekistan, I had my first cup of coffee.
Oh man,
And
green bean. Nice.
yeah.
Solid.
Since then, I can now drink espresso straight and go to bed.
There's no tolerance built up there.
My adrenal gland is totally healthy. Don't worry about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I started drinking on my first deployment. And then, so like whatever I do, I tend to overdo a little bit. And
You get
like,
into it. You
right,
nerd out on a little
yeah,
bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, like learn the process and all that kind of stuff. And so I started like going to like little websites and like trying to find like different single origin coffees that I liked and stuff like that and have them sent out. So fast forward to Iraq 2010, I'm having coffee shipped out and I'm looking at this website. I can't remember because I was living rough in Iraq, let me tell you, in my full trailer with Wi-Fi in my room.
So you're barely dragging by.
Right,
I get it.
yeah, I mean, geez, it was rough. And so I am ordering beans, and I'm like looking on this website, and I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know what green beans were, and it said, but it was the cheapest on there, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna order a bunch of this.
It's just non-roasted, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And so but I didn't know that at the time. I was just like, I'm an idiot. And
so you got raw coffee sent to you in
got
Iraq?
so I got a bunch of raw coffee sent to me in Iraq, and so obviously I was like, well, I'm not just gonna waste this. So I ordered a roaster. Basically just it's almost like a popcorn popper air roaster.
So not big, like
it's not
nothing
big
industrial
at all.
scale.
No, it literally looks like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's, maybe like 10 inches tall and like 8 inches wide. And it basically just sends hot air into this canister up like a popcorn popper. And so, and that just roasts the beans. And so I learned a little bit about roasting at that point. And
you're working on a full barista station in Iraq.
Exactly, in Iraq in my trailer. And, and I just got into it so much. I was like, oh, this is really cool. Obviously moved up to like a drum roaster, which is a little bit more, I guess, a little easier to manipulate, where the popcorn popper is very like, it's hard to get an even roast. It's hard.
Yeah, just because it's just hot air blowing.
It's just hot air blowing up over the beans. So the drum roaster, started doing that a little bit, got into it. And then I was just like, we started this Good Dudes thing with Rich and Dan, and I was like, man, let's move into the coffee industry, and let's.
It's not saturated at all.
Right, exactly. So, but I love it, and it's something I have passion for. So I was like, why not?
That's the key right there, right? You'd be doing it anyway, so you might as well.
Right.
Does Dan and Rich, do they even drink coffee?
They do a little bit, not as much as I do, obviously.
We need to change that immediately.
And so obviously, yeah, I'm actually tonight after I leave here in Atlanta, I'm actually flying to Nashville, and then I'm gonna be in Cookeville for 3 weeks.
That's what I figured when I saw your ticket out of here. I was like, you got to be going to hang out.
Yeah, so I'm going to hang out with Rich and do some training for games and stuff like that. And since I'm gonna be there for 3 weeks, I had an entire like setup sent to his house. I texted him.
You're out of your mind.
I texted him like, Rich, man, I'm coming for 3 weeks, so
you're gonna be a pallet.
You have quite a few things coming to your house from Amazon, and so he just started laughing, and so he'll be on the coffee train here very soon.
He needs to be,
and plus he just had a second child. He just adopted another. They adopted another little boy, which is
so
unbelievable,
awesome,
so cool, and I'm so happy for them, and they're gonna need it. One child, like when you go from 0 children to no children, or to 1 child,
your math is
like,
as good as mine.
Right? Yeah, exactly. When you go from 0 to 1, it's impressive how much you didn't realize how little time you have and how hard it is,
and how little control you have now.
Right.
Yeah.
And but when you go from 1 to 2, I was blown away.
Hey, brother, come over to my house. Go from 2 to 3.
Right, exactly. Like I haven't taken that step
Man
yet.
Defense shifts to zone.
Right.
And they're just like they push out the wide receivers and they send a fullback dive all the time. Like they swear to God, my kids have a Bluetooth connection and they know how to separate and just dominate 2 parents.
Right. Oh, easily domination.
So
happens.
I have to deny terrain. Get in your room and close the door. It's all I can do is. That's all I can do is fall back on that. Yeah, it's crazy, man.
But at least yours are older now. You said 13, 11.
13, 11, and my daughter just turned 9 yesterday.
Okay, so but you had them at a pretty close range.
We were close. I mean, we had 6 years straight of diapers. And
I was just gonna say, you had 2 in diapers at one time. That is impressive, right there. Because
I would have chosen a different word. But
I was the same way where I had 2 in diapers at the same time, and I had. Do you have dogs?
We have a petting zoo at our house. We have 1, 2, 3 dogs and a cat.
Okay, wow.
It's a petting zoo.
Holy Toledo.
It's never a problem at all. They never destroy the house, ever.
Did you have those dogs when you had your babies?
We had 1 dog.
Okay.
Which was a phenomenal dog. That dog was violated so many different times.
Right.
It was bad.
I remember, so when the boys were both in diapers and I had the dog, and I had, myself, all I remembered thinking was like, man, I'm dealing with shit all day long.
100%.
Their shit, the
6 to 8
dog
diapers
shit,
a day.
my shit.
Yeah.
It's just like, that's all I kept thinking. I was like, man, all day long, there's just shit. It's just,
Yep.
and that's what I say when you see when you have 2 kids in diapers, it's really impressive to me, because that is hard right there.
And good on for them too to go that route.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. It's great. No, and they got, it's really cool. The Fronings are great people.
Yeah, you're linked
They're
up with good
phenomenal.
people for
Yeah.
sure. At the end of the day, like the good dudes thing, 3 awesome people doing good stuff. Like it'll go places.
Yeah, it's
for
cool.
sure.
We're excited, and we're gonna pick it back up after the games, going back doing the good dudes training camps, and
Yep.
then the coffee, and there's some other stuff we're looking at doing too. So
I
it's gonna
cannot
be
wait
good.
to try some of the coffee and tell you it's terrible, regardless of what it tastes like.
Obviously.
Like, this is shit, Josh. It might be the best in the world, but like, I'm going to give you 0 stars on Amazon. I'm going to write like a Steinbeck novel review.
Now,
Like, this is the worst tasting coffee.
See, everyone's gonna know that you're lying.
Well,
at this
obviously, I'll
point.
do it under a different name.
Right, right.
Well, Ron, I got to run you down to the event, but
Yes, we do,
thanks for
brother.
taking the time, man. Appreciate
no worries.
catching
Thanks
up.
for having me on, brother.
Cool. We're done. 2 episodes in the bag. That's all I got for you today. So here's the deal. I need some help. Kind of, I suppose, if you want to. If you guys like the podcast, do me a favor. Tell somebody about it. And people keep telling me that reviews help. So go on iTunes and write a review. If you don't like the podcast, just don't do any of that. Don't tell anybody about it or write a bad review. It's totally up to you. One thing I want to do is say a huge thanks to 511 Tactical. Josh is actually a 511 ambassador, as am I. For those of you who think that tactical gear is cargo pants designed back in the Nam era, check out the website. Check them out. My favorite pair of jeans actually is currently made by these guys. I actually wear their stuff all day long. So check them out, and shave the handlebar mustache. Upgrade your gear. That's all I'm saying. Episode 3 coming out next week. See you.